right, hi there, guys. So hopefully at this point you guys are doing okay working through your circulatory system stuff. You should have completed the quiz already, and in that you should have learned about how the heart kind of acts as a pacemaker of itself. So I want to just go a little bit, do a little lesson on the nervous system control of the heart, because this is an important section of that homeostasis. So I'll just do kind of a quick video here. Okay, so previously, you should have already learned that the heart itself is capable of controlling its own heartbeat. That is through that SA node. So remember, the SA node is considered to be the heart's internal pacemaker. It sets the heart rate, sends that signal to the AV node, down the bundle of His to the Purkinje fibers for the ventricles to contract. Now, that is not the only way that heart rate can be controlled. So there's also a portion where the nervous system can also kind of override that SA node and set either a faster or a slower heart rate. The control center for this mechanism is going to be the medulla oblongata. Now, hopefully you remember that word. That's actually the control center of the respiratory system as well. That also indicates our breathing rate. So keep in mind the medulla oblongata and the hypothalamus are both regions of the brain, but they're not the same. The medulla oblongata is more in kind of the lower brain stem. So the medulla oblongata is actually capable of slowing or speeding up the heart rate through nervous system impulses. So I want to just talk here about the sympathetic and parasympathetic systems. There is a branch of our nervous system called the autonomic nervous system. This is part of our kind of nervous system that we don't have control over. This typically is monitoring or controlling our heart rate, our breathing rate, and our digestion. We don't have to think to do those things, all right? And our nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, has two branches, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. These are opposites of each other. So the sympathetic nervous system, or the sympathetic branch, this is your kind of fight or flight response. So the sympathetic system helps to kind of prepare your body in case of danger, or at least what the body perceives as danger. So this is going to kind of dilate your pupils, increase your heart rate, increase your breathing rate. The parasympathetic system is the opposite. This is known as kind of your rest and digest system. So the parasympathetic system is all about restoring the body to kind of a calm, resting state. So this is going to be the part of the nervous system that tries to increase digestion and increase salivary secretions and, get those things going. But if you were in a state of fight or flight, your body would not be worried about digestion, and it would inhibit impulses to that area of the body, and it would be more worried about our heart rate and our breathing rate. Okay, so sympathetic and parasympathetic, these act on a lot of portions of our body, but right now we're going to focus on the heart rate. The sympathetic system is going to act to increase our heart rate in times of stress or perceived stress. The parasympathetic system and the nerves is going to act to slow down the heart rate. So they're in opposition to each other. So I'm just going to scroll down here to the picture. When we're talking about the nervous system here, we're talking about afferent and efferent nerves. And we might hear this again when we're talking about maybe blood vessels. Afferent generally means coming to, and efferent means going away. So we have two efferent vessels leaving the medulla oblongata and going to the SA node. Right here, that's our SA node. The sympathetic system acts through the accelerator nerve, or it's sometimes called the cardio accelerator nerve. It's going to act to increase heart rate. The vagus nerve is the parasympathetic nerve, and it's again going to go from the medulla oblongata, and it's going to act to decrease and slow the heart rate. So these two nerves stimulate the SA node to either override, to increase or decrease the heart rate. But keep in mind, the SA node is also capable of just setting its internal, pace without them. So why would these two things kind of override that SA node? So it's all about maintaining homeostasis, right? We want to have a good heart rate that's capable of supplying our body with enough blood and enough blood pressure to get oxygen to all of our cells, accelerated. So I'm going to actually just flip over here. You can come back and read this later. I'm going to flip to this next slide here to show you kind of the negative feedback loop. Now this one's a little different than what we've seen before. It actually starts here. So if we were to kind of start here at our stimulus, if our body had a very fast heart rate, sensory receptors in the aortas would become stretched. They would detect that fast heart rate. They would then send a signal to the medulla oblongata, the control center, which would signal via the parasympathetic nerve or the vagus nerve. And that would act to slow the heart rate. The response would be the SA node would receive that signal, it would slow the heart rate would decrease, and it would return to normal. Now, the opposite would be if the heart rate was too slow, that might be a problem in that then maybe our body tissues aren't getting enough blood, aren't getting enough oxygen, so our blood pressure might be really low. If our blood pressure was really low, again, the sensory receptors would detect that and they would use the sympathetic nervous system or the accelerator nerve to speed up our heart rate. As you keep reading, you're going to notice when you connect this to the blood pressure section, they're going to be very similar. So it's those chemoreceptors in our blood vessels that are capable of sensing oxygen and carbon dioxide levels, as well as pressure. Okay, there are things called baroreceptors that detect pressure. Those things combined, again, signal through our medulla oblongata to tell our heart rate to either increase or decrease, and that typically also relays then to our respiratory muscles as well. Now, there's other things that are going to affect our heart rate as well. Things like, I'm sure you've noticed before, exercise is one thing that causes our heart rate to increase, often because our body needs more oxygen. There's also going to be, in this case, a release often of adrenaline. And adrenaline is a hormone that can increase our heart rate through the sympathetic nervous system. Things like our emotions. Our emotions also can trigger release of hormones that do a very similar thing. Chemicals. Things like alcohol. Alcohol slows our heart rate. Caffeine speeds up our heart rate. Things like carbon monoxide. That's a chemical that will slow our heart rate. Carbon dioxide would actually increase our heart rate. So I want you to continue reading on, but I just wanted to kind of overview this little loop here. So in summary, the heart rate is set by the SA node. However, our nervous system can also control this through our sympathetic and parasympathetic nerves. The sympathetic nerves will increase our heart rate and parasympathetic will decrease. All right, thank you.